Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Katie Cherkasky. Katie, welcome.
Thank you.
So what's your assessment of this plan to send Abrego Garcia to this small African country?
Well, Abrego Garcia turned out to be a very bad poster child for this immigration crisis. And in fact, now the administration is showing exactly the position he's put himself in. So he was given an opportunity to take a plea deal based upon the criminal allegations that came about. But barring that, he's still deportable. So in order to accommodate what the administration says are some issues with other countries that he couldn't go to for fear of persecution, they have chosen another small African country, which they can, in fact, deport him to. He is deportable. He has been deemed deportable for quite some time. So that is the authority that the executive has at this point.
2 teenagers arrested for the murder of a congressional intern on Capitol Hill this summer. Important for the young man's grieving family. What about the message that sends to Washington, D.C.?
Well, again, this whole conversation regarding the immigration crisis, which President Trump was largely elected on, has been displayed very clearly for the American people, the extent of the problem and the lengths that need to be taken to address all of this. And it's quite sad every time we hear any of these stories that are totally unnecessary, given the fact that many of these people should never have been here in the first place. So it's a huge problem that's going to take a long time to unwind. But that's the whole point of all these legal battles. And it's very necessary for the future of our country.
Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General is suing over the National Guard deployment, saying, quote, the National Guard deployment does not only undermine public safety, it also hurts D.C.'s economy, depressing vital industries like restaurants, hotels, and tourism. And critically, it infringes on D.C.'s sovereign authority and right to self-governance under the Home Rule Act. How do you assess that argument, Katie?
I think it's a losing argument. D.C. is not really a sovereign in the sense of a state at all. So they have a much weaker argument. The president is the commander in chief of the National Guard there. And big picture, from a principal perspective, the crime in D.C. has been out of control for quite some time, for decades, really. The reports that there's less crime do not actually resonate with reality when you're not actually enforcing the law or reporting things accurately. So to the extent that they have taken issue with the federal law enforcement, the local law enforcement wasn't actually doing its job. So I think that this is yet again another opinion very vulnerable on appeal, or a lawsuit that will, if they win, will be vulnerable on appeal.
On immigration, the Pentagon is authorizing up to 600 military lawyers to serve as temporary immigration judges, probably critical with the immigration surge. Does that work in your view?
It absolutely works. I'm a former JAG myself. Military lawyers, and really any lawyers, are able to practice law in really any field that they become competent in. The immigration judges are not judges in the sense of regular federal judges. They're part of the executive branch, and any lawyer is now qualified to take that position. Military lawyers already work for obviously the Department of War, I guess, at this point, and they can be moved over there for an assignment. And certainly, I think that they're very capable. Many of the JAGs and military lawyers got those positions through highly competitive processes, and so certainly they can fill those roles, and they are competent to do so. Immigration judges are also the kind of first level of review of these immigration cases. They're overseen by senior immigration judges and the Board of Immigration Appeals, and ultimately really the federal courts, which is why there's such a backlog here. These immigration cases have such lengthy processes. So I think it's highly necessary to get these things moving. There's, I think, over 3 million plus immigration cases that are in the docket there. So something needs to give, and I think that's a perfect solution.
There is some criticism. Let's play it. I'll get you to respond.
We feel like that these judges, for the most part, have zero experience in immigration law, have no experience in administrative law, and are going to render decisions, life and death decisions in some cases, about deportations of immigrants in this country. And these are decisions that can be appealed.
Final thought on this, Katie?
Well, I think that is very generalized, and there's no specific individuals that have been pointed out. We don't know for sure what people's experience are with the immigration realm, but even barring any experience whatsoever, these are experienced attorneys that are capable and qualified to fill those roles. And again, subject to many other levels of review after these decisions, but they are capable attorneys to do so. And something has to give in terms of getting these cases moving. It can't be that there's years and years of backlog. And that's one of the major issues here. And the Trump administration is targeting this immigration crisis, and it really is a crisis from all angles. And I think that is a practical decision to be had. They already have these federal attorneys, and they can move them over. Now, the number of them, I think, is interesting because there are other roles that have to be filled on the military law side, but military lawyers move all the time to different assignments and can certainly fill those roles.
Katie Cherkasky, always interesting. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.